Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about how to get SFTP working with Ploi. Now the truth is you don't actually need to get this working to work with Ploi and Statamic, especially since if I go into, for example, edit environment in the top right, we can control things from here like setting an environment file, and so we don't really need SFTP access. However, there is something about having the old school, being able to look at files to see what's going on, to troubleshoot anything that's happened. It is true that you can SSH into the server and maybe look at these files in terminal. However, that doesn't give you the nice GUI that having a nice FTP client like, I don't know, Transmit will give you. So let's try and set it up just so that we have the option there in case we need to see what's going on. Now I'm using an FFTP client called Forklift. And what Forklift does is it actually scans your SSH files to see whether you have an SSH connection to the server. This is like an extra security step, and since we probably want SSH access anyway, it wouldn't be a bad idea to set it up. So if you remember, when we first set up the server to link with Ploi, Ploi sent us an email with our server details. In that email was actually a command that we need to use to log into SSH. Also, we have the sudo password, which we're going to need to set up SFTP access in our FTP client. But first of all, if we just copy the command here, and yours will be slightly different because it will be a different IP address. And if I paste the command here, hit enter, the first thing you'll see is that we have a permission denied error. This is a slightly similar process to what we had going with adding SSH access between Ploi and Bitbucket. So what we need to do this time is go to Ploi and then go into our server, go into SSH keys, and then add an SSH key here. So I'll call this MacBook 2018 because that's the MacBook I have. And then if you remember how to get your SSH key, you'll either have an RSA encrypted key or a ED encrypted key. The easiest way to find out is if you go into your home folder, make sure you have hidden files shown. You can do this with the keyboard shortcut Command plus Shift plus full stop. And then you can see here, I have ID_ED. So this is the ED encryption standard. And you can run a command in terminal to fetch this, but for simplicity, I'm going to open it up in TextEdit. And I'm going to blur this out, but yours will be similar in that it's a load of numbers followed by an email address. And I'm going to paste this in there, add SSH key. And now if I go back to terminal and press the up arrow to go to the last command and run it again, you'll see that we're actually in the server now. So this means that our SSH access is working. Now seeing as I use Forklift, which scans the SSH file, there's one gotcha here, which is that as of macOS 10.12, I think what happens here is that it doesn't automatically establish an SSH connection whenever it logs in. I think if I've done it now, yes, it will have it. But if I log back out and in again, then I think I'll lose this. Because it says here to make it persistent, we need to do a couple of things. So this is, the standard development gotcha. So what you need to do here, if you don't already have a config file in your SSH directory, which you probably don't, I think I had to create mine. You need to create a blank file. So one easy way to do this is just duplicate this file, call it config, and then open it and overwrite it. And I'm going to open mine here in TextEdit so you can see. So we need this text here. And this will be slightly different if you have an RSA encryption standard. But don't worry, I'll post this in the notes. So you're going to paste this text in, save it, close it. And then we need to run this command, which will just add this so that it runs every time we log in. So if you have a ED encryption standard like I do, then it will be, let me just open a new terminal window. It will be like that. Hit enter and it says identity added. Great, okay. So I'm going to go to Forklift now. What we need now when we connect to SFTP is firstly the server we're going to connect to. If you go into your deploy dashboard and then into your server, if you look in the top left, you can see that there's the IP address. If we click this, it copies it to our keyboard. So I'm going to paste that as the server. The username will be Ploi and the password will be the sudo password in this email, the server sudo password. I'm going to copy that, paste it, and we can leave the rest as is. And if I connect now, we can see we're in the Ploi server. So I don't actually have any sites on this demo server. I'm just going to connect to my other server so you can see what it might look like. So I've just blurred the rest of the folders out, but you can see this is my JGeorge site, and this looks exactly like it looks locally in Finder now. So here we can see exactly what's been deployed, and this might help us to, troubleshoot later on or just understand what's going on. Your process might be easier if you don't have to configure that SSH connection, but at the same time, it is good to get that SSH connection working, especially if you want to log into the server and commit your changes to Git, which I'll cover in another video. Happy old school FTPing.